You're listening to Behind the Lines, a podcast presented by inplayLIVE and powered by Pinnacle, the #1 sportsbook where winners play and never get limited. Go to pinnacle.com/inplayLIVE to sign up and get in the game.
Pay them a small subscription so that they can feed you parlays. As if I wasn't capable of going and throwing together my own parlay. That's going to lose most of the time. No, I'll pay someone else to give me one. Hello and welcome. It's Behind the Lines, powered by Pinnacle, purifying the sports betting industry. I'm Shane. He's Pace. On today's show, New Jersey says it doesn't have enough pie. The betting industry is growing, but so does the scamming and the evolution of IPL. Where does it fit in? Members, stay tuned for this. And even if you're not members, I'm sure you're going to find it fascinating. All right. Before we get to what New Jersey wants, I've got some numbers to share with you, Pace, coming from the American Gaming Association. So these are some stats from 2024. So bettors risked $150 billion. This would just be in the U.S. using U.S. sportsbooks. Doesn't include Canada. That's the most since 2018. It's always the most at this sort of stage of the industry. Everything is always the most. So that's the most since 2018. The amount lost is $13 billion. So 150 billion wagered, 13 billion lost just in 2024. Now, out of that money that was risked and lost, the states getting their tax collected a total of everything combined $2.5 billion in tax revenue during that time. Pace, any surprises there? I mean, it is always the most, and apologies for everybody out there as I was sort of making my way through those numbers. As you can see, I'm not in my regular setup, so just wanted to make sure that I was referencing the right numbers there. But Pace, what do you think?
Yeah, I hope Chesto works some magic on this podcast, Shane. You sound like shit.
I got my travel setup going on here, and it's certainly nowhere near as sophisticated as what we usually use.
Well, the thing is with the audio tools that are out there, you can clean up stuff so easily. But as far as where recording goes, it sounds like I'm on the back of a turbulent plane and you're the pilot letting me know that we're at cruising altitude and the sports books are still making money.
Yes. And everybody out there, fasten your seatbelts.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's a good question, Shane. So the thing is it's with anything in the media, right? Doesn't matter if it's about a sports book, something political, Elon Musk's favorite tweet that you like to respond to, Shane. Doesn't matter what it is. I said I wasn't going to bring it up, and then I brought it up for
Hey, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, why not respond to Elon Musk? Everyone else does.
Okay, but you get the information as it's presented to you. So I'd have a lot of questions, right off the bat about the numbers that you just rung off. So $150 billion was wagered, correct?
Correct. 150 billion wagered, 13 billion lost, and 2.5 billion in tax revenue. 13
billion lost, you mean players lost 13 billion?
That's correct.
Yeah. So that in theory is $13 billion in profit. Obviously, there's more to the equation of profit than just money wagered and money lost by the player. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's surprising from a betting industry needing to be profitable and successful standpoint. I guess that's kind of good news on that side of the equation. You never want to hear about people losing a bunch of money, but these businesses are there to make money. Obviously, that's their purpose. So they kind of do need to head into that direction. Interestingly enough, there's just a couple things I wanted to bring up, and this kind of segues into it right away. I got an email today that FitzDares is no longer operating in Ontario. I think this was one that we brought up on podcast at some point a couple of years back.
Yeah.
And they're the same book as, that like Fans Bet. We made fun of a bunch who they're not operating anymore, not because of being regulated and not succeeding, because of just how shady they were as a sports book. They got shut down or whatever the case with them. But I think they were the same lines as them. And the reason why I bring that up is because you're like new records, right? Like more money wagered, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's profitability associated with it. There's been times where you've been on the podcast in the last couple of years where you've been like, well, this much was wagered, but nothing was actually won, or the margin that was won by the sportsbooks I'm referencing being actually quite low. And you know, we've looked at some stock prices and some things, and we go, geez, these sportsbooks aren't figuring out how to make money. So not only is it record, but it's also withdraw. And there are more and more operators leaving the regulated landscape than I would have predicted, or quicker than I would have predicted, at least. And we had a little chat about this on stream the other day. 888 Sport was in New Jersey. They pulled out right away. Betway's out of the United States. Obviously, Win and Fox Bet are gone. Unibet isn't even Unibet anymore. I don't know what the name of their sportsbook is, but they pulled out of New Jersey and Ontario and changed the name of their sportsbook. I think Sports Interaction left Ontario. We know Bet99 left Ontario. And I'm just spitballing right now. I'm not reading a list. There are a lot more that have pulled out. So we've got record high profit, but too fewer operators, right? Not to mention a lot of these operators, as we know, we talked about the Rogaine or whatever the hell it's called, that is them all sort of colluding and sharing information with each other about their players. So no, not surprised. This is kind of the state of things in the industry right now.
Yeah, it really is. I'm glad you brought up Fitstairs. They were a really, really interesting one because I think their goal was to open up a whole bunch of brick and mortar places in Ontario, in Toronto, and it would be like a sophisticated sort of sports book that you could go and attend, similar to what you might find in Vegas or something like that. But not something that we really have here in Ontario. So they were going to do something kind of new in that sense. But obviously not the landscape for them, since they ended up having to leave. And you're right, we've seen a lot of those, I won't even call them sort of, fourth or fifth players in terms of market share for whatever regulated market they're operating in. But, at least in Ontario, sort of well, even below that, the 10th, 10th and ninth kind of books that most people probably would never even venture to unless, you're doing the kind of thing that we are. Yeah. So not surprising, I think, maybe to sort of see people come in, and by people, I mean operators, see them come into the market and then sort of see themselves out.
Right. And on the flip side of that, those sports books that I mentioned, they're still operating in Canada in the gray market. And then now we're seeing an increase in the United States of gray market sports books outside of the regulated states and inside the regulated states. So we were just having a chat last night about an opportunity that came up in the New Jersey Devils game in our Discord after our stream was over. And people are like, oh, just go to TonyBet.com. It's their US site. Stake.com. It's their US site. We've got, Novig and Underdog and some of these sweepstakes models that are popping up in the US, essentially like loopholes. So it's interesting because why is Fitstairs, and this is probably the single worst example of a sports book, but a much better one would be Bet99. Why is Bet99 operating in Canada still, but could not succeed in the regulated market? Why is TonyBet.com available in the US, but never applied for regulation or never succeeded in applying in regulation in some of the major states like New Jersey that at some point had like over 70 operators in that state? And how is it that they're able to succeed in a more sustainable way, a more competitive way amidst the other we're not talking about the unregulated market being less competitive and therefore then they succeed. It's significantly more competitive. There's way more sports books available in the gray market than there are right in these regulated states. Take Massachusetts, for example, who has like 8 operators, right? So why is it that they're able to succeed outside of the parameters of regulation and do so with a lot more ease? Is it because they don't have to pay out all their bets? Is it because they can give customers the runaround with verification before they pay them? Is it because they can do minimum weekly or daily payouts where they say, oh, our max payout per day is $2,000, or our max payout per week is $2,000 or $5,000, which leads to players tilting and losing more money? And separately of that, these people are also attracting more sharp action, because sharp action isn't sustainable completely and exclusively in your own name in a regulated state. So that's the question. Is it simply because they're dodging the tax? Well, the tax that you just brought up was what? What did you say? You said they made $13 billion and 2.5 of that went to tax.
That's right.
That to me it's not a small number, but it doesn't seem like a make or break percentage that would completely take you out of the regulated market if you were one of these books that has left there and is still operating in the gray market. So I don't know. I find the whole thing interesting. I desperately at this point want the gray market to succeed. I want sports books like Underdog or stake.com or whatever it is to be for people in the United States to be able to access them and use them. I don't want to hear about Bovada closing up because they're going after them because they're the biggest competitor to the regulated books in those states. I want Bovada around for the players and for the competitiveness of it.
Okay, you listed a whole bunch of reasons as to why there, and then brought up the tax. I think that's a great opportunity for us to talk about the tax, because maybe they're seeing the writing on the wall. And what I mean by that is, here's New Jersey, for example. They just came out, their governor, Phil Murphy, has come out and said he wants to raise the tax on sportsbooks, currently being taxed at a rate of 13%. iGaming, so we're talking about online casinos here, they're taxed at a different rate, 15% in the state of New Jersey. So 13% for the sportsbook, 15% for the casino. And Governor Phil Murphy wants to up it to 25%. Okay, so we're talking about more than or doubling it or close to doubling it for casinos, 25%. So, this would still be lower than what we see in New York and Pennsylvania. They're both over the 50% mark, but it's following in the footsteps of states like Illinois and Ohio. Illinois increased from 15% to 35% just over a year ago. And Ohio's also made a similar move, going from 10% to 20%, 10% to 20% in 2023. Okay, so Ohio started at 10%, went to 20% in 2023, and that state is now looking to go from 20% to 40%. So, I mean, perhaps these books are just seeing the trend and are like, you know what? We can play ball right now where we're at, and we're sort of scraping by and making a small profit. But if the tax rate in this regulated market is going to double, maybe they can't play ball.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're a bookie or a gray market book, you just start licking your chops because it's all coming full circle to an extent if these books start pulling out. Are DraftKings and FanDuel going to be around? I think so.
I think so.
They're going to be around.
Yeah.
Right?
They
Are
might
the
be
rest
the
of
only
them going
ones
to be
around.
around? Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Are the rest of them going to be around? We don't have the answer to that, but certainly we've seen that it's less, and it sounds like it's going to continue to be less. And if that's the case, where does this all I really care about at the end of the day? Where does that leave the player, right? Where does that leave you, Shane? Where does that leave me? Where does it leave the members of the inplayLIVE community? And oftentimes it takes creative solutions to do what we have to continue to do to an extent.
Yeah, it's gonna very likely leave us with fewer and fewer outs as these books look to move on, because they just they're not the DraftKings or FanDuel's, or at least here in Ontario, the Bet365, which I would say probably still has the greatest market share, at least in Ontario and pace. I don't know. I would imagine for the rest of Canada as well. But certainly not the case in the US, where FanDuel has the largest market share and is sort of being referred to quite frequently now as the largest sports book in America. Right. Obviously, DraftKings is a big time rival there, but I think you're going to start to see a lot of these books having to move out, and then we know that the Sharp model is one that has tighter margins. And so, if the sharp books are going to be squeezed with these kinds of taxes, sharp sports bettors in these markets are going to have a really tough time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you said something. You're like less and less outs. I think it's less and less regulated outs.
Regulated outs, yes.
Yeah. And you know what? You know what else is interesting? So I swear to God, it was like 3 years ago when we were talking about Alberta being the next province to be regulated in Canada. Like, I think it was 3 years ago. This begs the question when you look at this big picture, and if the people involved in both, passing through betting in a new state or province, number one, how hard they're pushing it and how they're pushing it. But number two, the pushback in the reasons to say no to it. Do you not look at this big picture and just go, why even entertain the idea now? Because of the fact that there are books operating in this gray market, number one, that maybe we don't have the best control over, that we were hoping to have controlled. And number two, because of the fact that the competitive nature of the industry seems to be regressing to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think if you are in an unregulated market, so the majority of Canada and I think there's still about 13 holdout states in the U.S., California and Texas, of course, being the two really big ones. I think if you're you're a lawmaker there, you're probably still just kind of maybe licking your chops at the whole thing as it explodes, thinking like, oh, I can't, if we got to do this so that we can get a share of those tax dollars, without maybe seeing the full picture. And I say that, Pace, because whenever we really pay close attention to what the lawmakers and what the regulators are doing, the people that you think are supposed to be the most knowledgeable in the space and sort of, have done the most research and that kind of thing, we start to see that actually they haven't, and they know very little about the space, and they sort of tend to have blinders on sometimes, and are so heavily influenced by the books right from the get-go. So I don't know that it'll be that competitive nature will be a deterrent.
Yeah, I guess, like always, time will tell. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was that in the UK, and I don't know where specifically, but this is again from a member in our community, they threw out there that they now have, I guess, audits associated with their income as soon as they have deposited more than 150 euros to a sportsbook in 1 month. Not a day, not a week, 1 month.
1 month.
So as soon as you hit 150 euros, there's some sort of financial audit that you have to prove that you have the means to have deposited that amount of money. And there's going to be two sides to something like this. The first side obviously is going to be, we are protecting against crime, money laundering, and whatever else is associated with people moving big money through casinos and sportsbooks. So that side of it, I'm always kind of be like, okay, that's fair. Limit that as much as you can. Obviously, there's tons of sportsbooks that's their livelihood, especially in the crypto space. But then the second is like, we talked about this last week. It's like an adult who deposits $200 into a site now is getting a financial audit that needs to prove that they had the means to lose this money. And my issue with this stuff typically is never going to be about the responsible gaming side of it. So if you take this strictly from the standpoint of responsible gaming, maybe there's some validity there, but that isn't the case. They're going to only look at this stuff once you pull your funds and use it as a reason to either, number one, catch you in a situation where they're like, you didn't have the means to play the way you played, and now there's going to be some sort of struggle for you to get your funds. And number two is looking at, potentially people using multiple accounts, not necessarily multi-accounting, but, someone like myself going and using someone's account who didn't have this $150 of disposable income, to go play with. And then, essentially going, where did you get that money from to deposit? And in my case, obviously, it wouldn't have been 200 euros or 150 euros. It would have been a couple more zeros there, right? So,
yeah. It seems like such a small amount to go and be
that's what I'm
audited for.
saying.
It's like,
I don't view this as a responsible gaming thing. I view this as a way for sportsbooks to kind of gain more control over potentially winning players.
Yeah, and they've got to prove that they had the means to wager what they did in the first place. That's a bit of a slippery slope there, and that is such a low threshold. Such a small amount of money. I mean, I don't know. It seems like it would be a lot of work for the books to have to go through that.
Totally. Well, take this basic example, right, Shane? If you're in Las Vegas or if you're in Vancouver, so whether you're in a different city than the one you currently live in, and then of course in Toronto, you walk into a casino that day. Do you get ID'd? Probably. Yeah. Do you get ID'd when you arrive? I know in Vancouver the answer is yes. I know in Vegas the answer is no. Right? Those Vegas casinos are hotels. So you walk into them. The time that they will ID you is when you start playing, if they feel that you need to be ID'd. I haven't been ID'd in Vegas for a very, very long time. Right?
Yeah. It's same in Ontario as it is in British Columbia. There, you get ID'd at the door, and even everybody kind of gets ID'd. It's
right.
Sort of like there's no discretion really. It's just everybody just shows their ID as they walk in.
So you go to the ATM machine, you pull out however much money you pull out. You get charged some egregious fee by the ATMs inside the casino because they're capitalizing on essentially your desperation in that moment.
Your
so
need to
bring your
cash.
own cash with you. Not to mention the currency exchange fees if you're from a different country playing in those casinos. But they hit you harder with everything once you're inside of the casino. They don't check to see if you had the means to pay for the fee. They don't check to see if you can afford the withdrawal. It's strictly based on whether or not that money is actually there or available to you. Not to mention, they work with credit cards. So if I'm walking into a casino and I have a $10,000 credit limit, I probably have a cash advance somewhere between $2,000 to $5,000 that I can then go and pull that money out. That doesn't mean that I can afford to lose that money. There's no steps or process associated with that withdrawal beyond the one that I just mentioned. I was verified at the door. Now, in the case of Vegas, most of the time for most players, you go out to that cage, you cash out, and the only form of identification that's going to be flipped on a regular basis is going to be a player's card for your rewards tracking, right? Like an MGM rewards or a Caesars rewards type player's card. So I'm not being ID'd ever. So I walked in, I had no cash. I got rinsed at the ATM machine. I got rinsed on the tables. There's no responsible gaming checks whatsoever. No one ID'd me. And then if I go pull out a little bit of money, as long as it wasn't a crazy amount, no one ever checked to see who I was in the first place, especially if I didn't have a player's card. Now, the times I have been ID'd in Vegas is when you go to the cage and you have a certain color chip, right? You get to a level where you got to put it down at the window. Not only do they then ID you, they actually call the table to find out if the games you were playing match your story. They call the pit boss, hey, this guy in this white hat just came in. He's got a couple of pink chips here. What game was he playing? They turn to you and they say, what game were you playing? Right? Like there is a little bit of a verification there, but it's again, of course, it's only based on cashing out and the money that you won. I've actually had to spend quite a bit of time sometimes. You guys know I'm not an advantage casino player. I just fuck around if I'm going to play in the casino. But I've gone through that process there. And I guess ultimately what the point is that if I'm face to face in these brick and mortar places, there's no issues whatsoever, which again brings it back to the only reason that they're doing this isn't about responsible gaming. It's about catching winning players that are using someone else's account. That's the only reason, because why else wouldn't they instill all of these same practices at the brick and mortar places that are operated by the exact same people or the exact same companies?
Yeah. You know what? That's a great point. You're probably onto something there, where this is more about control when it comes to knowing your customer, KYC stuff. Yeah. Huh. Well, it'll be sort of interesting to kind of see it how it plays out. I hope that we don't start to see that kind of thing on this side of the pond, and they can keep it over there. But that is a much more developed industry over there in Europe. When it comes to sports betting, it's much further along than we are here in North America, and we've seen some lawmakers over here on this side of the pond talk about that kind of thing, affordability checks. Right, that's a very sort of popular term thrown around by advocates, people who are concerned about gambling addiction and that kind of thing. But I think you're probably right in the sense that it could lead to the sports books just having greater control and being able to cause frustration for winning bettors.
Totally. And also too, I mean, the over the pond stuff has set the tone for a lot of the practices here.
Yeah.
I think the US took a crack at some bonuses and some different things to acquire customers that seemed unprecedented when it all started. It was like, you're giving away what bonus? You're doing this? Holy smokes, you guys are in trouble. And they were. It cost them a lot of money to do those things that they did. But the industry, like, there's certain tones of certain industries, right? Like, this won't maybe relate to the people in the US, but do you ever get back from the hospital and go, God damn, that receptionist customer service was incredible, right? Like at a Canadian hospital, right? And nothing's ever on time. You have to wait months. You know what I mean? So like, it's just, there's a precedent set. Like, you're not going to have the most friendly experience necessarily in a Canadian hospital, right? And I think that the same tune goes for a lot of the standards that were set over the pond in the UK for the betting industry. All the practices and things that they do, especially with the operators that then come overseas to try to get their piece of the pie here in North America, it all spills over, which is why we've seen some stuff that the regulators have kind of been shocked by, where they actually have had to step in and go, hey, you guys can't do that. Or like, this is the player's money. It's not yours. You have to cash them out in full today,
Mm-hmm. Which is great, and it's nice to have a regulator to go to when you end up in a dispute. Absolutely. Okay, I want to talk about another sort of side of this industry that has grown, exploded, and continues to blow up in pace. That's the side that you're very much on and in and have kind of lived. And I'm talking about the touts and the tout services out there, right? Which is right? Betting tip services, right? That whole space has grown incredibly, and
has it?
Well, I'm seeing that it's massive. When I look on Threads, I'm on Threads, as we've kind of chatted about quite a bit here, but not just on Threads, on Twitter as well, where I'm tweeting at Elon Musk. My feeds pace are overwhelmingly people who want you to follow them, to tail their picks, to join their Discord communities, to pay them a small subscription so that they can feed you parlays. As if I wasn't capable of going and throwing together my own parlay. That's going to lose most of the time. No, I'll pay someone else to give me one. Anyway, but what I'm saying is that I'm flooded with it, Pace. It is constant. And it's like,
okay,
even the ones that perhaps they're not pushing parlays, perhaps they're pushing straights, and they realize that parlays are negative EV, and these are people who are trying to put out positive EV plays. They're few and far between, but those ones exist as well. Those tend to be the people I want to engage with a little bit more and have actual conversations about the betting landscape from a sharp perspective. Those are the people I'm trying to connect with, but those are so few and far between. Most of them are putting out complete garbage. They're also Pace not doing kind of any of the things that you would probably advise people look for if they're looking for a betting service outside of IPL. Things like a P&L record, a hit rate, profits gained over a certain period of time, units won, lost, all that sort of stuff that you would want to see and be able to verify, right? The vast majority aren't putting anything out there like that. If you even question them about it, they get very defensive. They get aggressive. I've talked a little bit about that before. But I swear, man, it's like everyone who's ever won a bet in their life suddenly thinks that they can operate a service and get people to pay a subscription. But the crazy thing, Pace, is that people are. At least it appears that they are. And we're talking about stuff that's like, hey, $10 a month, $20 a month, $30 a month. These sorts of things where it's like, if somebody here is a sharp better, one, and two is crushing the books, okay, do they really want to go out of their way to create a betting service and charge people $10 for a subscription fee? You know what I mean? Like, it just seems like a ton of work for someone that's out there, crushing the books the way they claim to be. Like, why not just focus on that and doing really well with that? So I kind of wanted to get maybe your perspective on where you see it as somebody who's sort of been in this space over the last, 4 or 5 years, and whether you think it's grown or maybe it's shrunk from your perspective, and I'm just seeing more of it myself. I don't know but I feel like it's grown significantly, and it seems like like I said, anyone who's ever won a bet can suddenly feels like they should be offering a service.
Sure. Yeah, I think, it kind of speaks to the same idea of tons and tons of sportsbooks opening up in Ontario or New Jersey and getting regulated, and then now they're not here anymore. Right? It's everyone trying to get their piece of the pie. That's number one. Number two, the way social media works is that if you kind of get that home run, whether it's a home run bet or a home run video, whatever it is, and you can kind of play off of that, there's something crazy that happens. So the basic model is this, rent your Lamborghini, go park up by the beach, get a beautiful, assistant or woman in the video with you, maybe at some point, get some big stacks of cash in the Lambo or beside the Lambo, and then tell people what you do for a living and tell them it's betting, and that's where all this profit and money came from. And you get views. And then when you get views and you have something to offer people, if it's free to join or if it's $10 or $30 to join and it's relatively cheap, a lot of people will look at that and go, okay, I'll take a crack. But then the social media from that point forward can be almost like self-fulfilling from the standpoint of, if you're active and you keep posting, the very next day when you post something, and the other one too that you see a lot is comment pick, and I'll send you my card for today. And you look at the comments and it's like pick, 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 pick. Well, you just drove a bunch of engagement on your channel because you're getting all these people to comment to see what it is. And the picks are auto sent out to you when you type in the comments below. So if you type pick underneath the comment, in your DMs will come the automated message. You didn't actually have to put that work in yourself, other than building that one message that gets automated out to the customer. Maybe even when you comment pick, it says the picks are actually in this link, and you click the link and you have to go through a bit of a sign up process to then reveal that free pick for the day. And then obviously you hit a point too where there might be some sort of a paywall. But then the next day when that happens and they send out the information, you start to get people that will comment. And of course, at the same time, if you're the tipster, tout, whatever, you are then telling all the people, hey, tell people that we won yesterday. Hey, man, it was your first day. You got this pick for free. I'd really appreciate it if you could comment on today's video. Hey, this guy's fire. I hit my parlay yesterday. Or, hey, this guy's awesome. We hit the Rangers yesterday. Whatever the hell it is, right?
Yeah.
But then when the losing run inevitably comes, which in a lot of these cases of the example you're giving, Shane, it's always a losing run.
Oh, of course.
Right? But what happens is you still get the people wanting to see what the picks are. Number one, they want to see if it wins or loses, and they don't play it themselves. So they just want to see it. Number two, you now have started to develop haters They might fade you, but they want to keep watching you lose. They're cheering against you. And what happens when you do that is you still are feeding the algorithm of the videos being put out so that you continue to be put in front of them, number one, but because you engaged with it, more people are being shown that content. So like the cash, stack of cash, Lamborghini, whether it's Sean Perry or this guy Seablez or whoever some of these guys are, there aren't a lot of records. There aren't a lot of ROIs. There are a lot of, this is what I do and here's my pile of cash, right? And then that model has then, of course, been followed time and again, where if anyone can convince you, whether it's everything from saying the outcome of the match, like a fixed game type stuff, there's tons of that stuff out there.
So
which
much
is what
fixed game. Yeah.
That's what Chesto's Today Game thing is from, is a guy trying to sell him. He'd say, "Are you ready for today game?" And then he'd try to sell him a fixed Matiches. He couldn't even spell match correctly. But he tried to sell him fixed Matiches, right? You just got to get one guy sometimes that starts following you a little bit, which I'm going to be honest with you, Shane. So you asked me for my opinion. There is, without question, I'm going to round up here.
Okay.
There is without question not a week that goes by where someone doesn't contact me where I could get the easiest sale imaginable because they're looking for picks and they're happy to join provided I give them these picks. They want something for free. They want picks. They want locks. At least once a week, I get a message like that. And if I am one of those tipsters or touts and I get that message where he goes, "Hey, the guy at inplayLIVE won't help me. He said this isn't the way that I should operate in the betting industry," and gave me a bunch of reasons why. That's not what I wanted to hear. In fact, I didn't even read them. I just went on to the next guy that's selling a pick service. And he says, take the Chiefs to win today. They're -9 favorites. You give out the Chiefs money line. It's going to come through at a hit rate of, potentially 85, 90%. Odds are you won that game. Odds are you can then say, "I told you so." Odds are you have a higher probability then of selling that person something, right? So like Vegas Dave was like the earliest touter scammer that was out running this thing, and it worked for him because I don't know how this happened, but Action gave him a spot on a documentary that he wasn't deserving of, right next to Bill Krakenberg. And Bill Krakenberg is like, he's a tipster. He sells packages and all that kind of stuff, but he actually is a professional sports bettor. And there's this fundamental difference between someone who's really good at this and how they handle that and their customers, and someone obviously that, that is a scammer. And, Vegas Dave ran with it for as long as he possibly could. And one of the big things he was doing was he would just take, your MLB slate, your typical like 3 or 4 game, you're playing the same team 3 or 4 games, your typical series, and he'd take the biggest favorite and he would bet them on the money line. And then the amount that you lost, you'd lay the juice on them day 2, and then you'd lay the juice on them day 3 and martingale those 3 or 4 games. And then at the end of the season, he'd say, "I went 22-3. Right? But those 3 times that you lost means you martingaled those 3 or 4 games on the juiciest line of the day, -200 to -400 MLB favorites. And you actually went broke those 3 times. So essentially you're 22-3 on surviving this martingale, but the 3 times that you failed to the detriment of your entire bankroll. And a lot of them will advise unit sizes beyond what their bankroll or money management even is capable of holding. So if you have 100 units in their bankroll, they'll say this is a 200 unit play. It's like, wait, what? So it goes back to the whole buyer beware thing. And Shane, on that, what have you seen? All that kind of stuff. The guys that are good and successful at this, they will last. They'll be around still, and I don't mean around on Twitter trying to sell you still. I mean customers that will back them and say, "Yeah, this guy really helped me," or "This guy's the real deal, and this is why." The nature of it as a whole is difficult because the edge that I got isn't necessarily the edge that you got. So if I'm like, "Hey, I'm sending out the Chiefs at -4 at -105 on this sportsbook," how much time do you have before that line moves if there is truly value on it?
Okay, so you've been in the space now, sort of, doing your thing and kind of, competing with these other services, right?
No.
No, you wouldn't say you're competing. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's definitely a different a different level of what you're doing versus what they're doing, 100%. But you don't feel like you're competing with other tipsters out there. Why not?
Those customers are not people that we're interested in.
That's a good point.
If someone was genuinely one of those people, and to use the term that gets everyone canceled, these people or those people, like, right? If someone is genuinely someone who has paid for services before in hopes of a greater future in the betting space or in any space, whether it's day trading, e-learning space as a whole, like you bought something to better yourself and it didn't work out or you got scammed. I don't want to say I don't want that person as a customer. That's not fair to that person. But what I would say is, as a general statement across the board, the people that aren't willing to put the work in, that want a handout that's a pick or a parlay that's going to change their life, those are the people that we're not interested in. But if you're someone that tried something, it didn't work, and you're still seeking how to better yourself, but you just don't have, you just haven't maybe found that right fit, and you're willing to work at it, those are the people that we could arguably both be competing for. But right. I think that's a very small subset of the market.
I would agree with you there. It does seem like a very, very small subset. There's a lot of people out there, like you're kind of getting at, that just want the pick. Give me the pick today, and we'll go from there, and I'll bug you about tomorrow's pick if it wins. And it's just, they're not interested in doing the work. So much so that they don't even want to come up with their own picks or figure out a way to make winning picks or long-term winning picks. We're seeing all those people out there, Pace. And you've been in the space, and you just got kicked off of Facebook. Tell us a little bit about how this happened. What happened? Facebook has been core to inplayLIVE, at least since I've joined it, and I think right from the beginning. And that's how I first came across you, was on Facebook. That's where I first saw you.
Pretty much everyone first started there. So I'll give you guys a little bit of background. And actually, if anyone's in the industry and they have a product or service, whether it's a sportsbook or some of the things that you just mentioned, Shane, anything, advertising is a challenge in the space, big time. That's why this affiliate model works, and that's why you don't log on to Facebook and see an ad for Bet365, in the middle of your Facebook page, right? So when we started inplayLIVE, like this is going to really go back and get into the nuts and bolts of some of the things that we did. But when we started inplayLIVE, we got denied for advertising on Facebook over and over and over again. And the entire basis of our business, like the model that we followed, was very much mimicking the e-learning space. We weren't mimicking like some, other tipster or anything in the sports betting space at all. It was like, we are teaching you how to successfully sports bet through a masterclass, not through live streams, because that wasn't what we were doing yet, through a masterclass.
Yeah. And
we are going to sell this masterclass to aspiring customers that want to learn more about betting.
Yeah, for people out there too, I would say you've said the word masterclass, and chances are, if you've been on Facebook, you've seen the masterclass ads. And I think, that's very similar to what I came across initially with IPL. Sort of similar vein. Yeah.
Totally. And that's the model we followed, and it was like right off the hop, it was almost like, guys, we've just gotten into business in something that we're not allowed to sell. Like, they're not letting us do this. Interestingly enough, we got contacted by a marketing company who was like, hey guys, like, don't worry about that. You don't need to sell through Facebook or through Meta or through any social platform. Like, we'll help you. We'll get you on the right sites. So we gave this guy like sort of a little test budget, a little trial to go out there and start advertising. And we get an email one day, and it's this guy saying, hey, I can't access your site. It's getting blocked by like a proxy or firewall or whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's getting blocked essentially. And we ended up digging into it a little bit more, and we found out that it was his company. He was trying to purchase our product from his office. So he's in his corporate, internet corporate Wi-Fi that maybe has some sites blocked. So it's got inplayLIVE blocked, and then it says, warning, adult content. And then below said it's flagged for pornography.
Oh, what you guys have on that site?
nothing. There was no pornography on the site.
I mean, you did have your shirts kind of open sometimes, Pace, like the sort of, buttons loose at the top there. I don't know. That might have had something to do with it.
Right? So what it was this marketing agency put us up on a bunch of porn channels. So you're getting all excited. You're ready to, take care of your own personal business, I guess. And up pops an inplayLIVE. So I think we were with these guys for I want to say 2 to 4 days, about that time frame.
Okay.
And we're like, guys, you made no mention of what your marketing strategy was other than getting us on the right sites to sell. We didn't give this guy a bunch of money. It isn't like we're like, here's this multi-$1,000 contract. Give him a few $100 and we're like, stop everything right now. This is totally done. Whatever extra money still hadn't gone out. Whatever extra money still hadn't gone out. We never ran the ads on Pornhub or wherever the hell they were running. But that was quickly removed. So anyways, that sort of led us to figuring things out with Meta. We basically went down the channel of hey, we are not a casino. We are an education platform. We're not making any, and we had to play by their rules. And what people naturally do when they see a scam is they report it. And they're all over the place right now. I've seen ones in the last 4 years. A really good example was when the crypto boom was kind of coming up and Elon bought Dogecoin. There's these AI videos essentially saying that Elon is, giving away a bunch of his Dogecoin, and you watch a webinar on him, giving away Doge, and you send $1,000 worth, he sends 2,000 back, and they get a bunch of people to do this, I guess. Otherwise it wouldn't operate. But those types of scams, what do? You immediately report it. If any of your friends are somehow a friend that sent it to you, which is the example I'm giving you is actually an inplayLIVE member sending me this link of Elon Musk giving away money and was saying hey, we got to take advantage of this basically. And, you tell your friend that, it's not legit. Right. And you report it. Right. Well, we live in a world that's just so full of scams. Think about the whole tout thing that you were just talking about right now. And it's the big thing out there too is, he gives half the people team A and he gives the other half team B, and the half that won, he celebrates that win, and the half that lost, he tries to keep selling to them and saying, we'll get the next one basically. I personally have been accused on that under my ads or our ads on Facebook, not once or twice, dozens and dozens of times. So I would say it was about maybe 6 months to a year into our business, inplayLIVE, where, we had enough reports on our ads basically saying that these guys are full of shit, that they shut down our ability to advertise on the platform. So we still have the inplayLIVE Facebook page. We still have the inplayLIVE Instagram page, but we are no longer permitted to advertise. Not only that, if we go to Meta verified for inplayLIVE, we can't get verified. So you'll see my personal Instagram has that blue check mark. We can't get it for inplayLIVE because of the fact that we were reported enough times by, people that had seen our content. And Shane, you've seen all our content, right? It would be very similar to reporting a short version of this podcast today, right? We're talking about winning money. We're talking about winning money from betting on sports. If you just clip the segment that I just said right there and we post that as an ad, it will get reported time and time again. It will get reported. It rubs people the wrong way. People telling you that you can win money from gambling or betting on sports. And a lot of that is for good reason. We just said the United States, $13 billion in profit to the books off $150 billion wagered, right? That is the nature of the industry. So to say anything otherwise, people obviously don't believe it and they report you. So what we did then is we're a year in max. It might've been the first 6 months. We're we have to figure out how to get back on Meta for advertising. It's the lifeblood of our business, of our community, to bring in new people. So we started a new page called IPL.community. And that in and of itself, I think, led itself to maybe looking like a bit of a scam, because the amount of my friends or members that have messaged me saying, hey guys, this is all your content, but it's not in play live. Is this you? Do you want me to report this? Right. And I'm sure some people just also automatically reported it. But the way Meta works is the page that you advertise from has to be attached to essentially like a person or an entity of some kind. So IPL community got attached to me, Andrew Pace, my Facebook page, my personal Facebook page. And we really didn't have any issues. It's been years. So from that point forward, whether it was 6 months in, 1 year in, approximately, that's when it was. We've advertised through that IPL community. We've definitely had a couple things where it's like, this ad's rejected for this reason. You know, you can't say that, but you can say this. So, you know, we've had people trying to work with us, help us. You know, Meta calls me every week. I don't pick up, but you know, we're a part of their ecosystem in a big way. And then, it was last week. They just basically shut everything down with no appeal whatsoever. So obviously, just there's enough reports of you know, it being a scam from people, or people saying, you know, it's tipsters or whatever, that Facebook saw enough of it and said that, you know, we're in violation. And my personal page just gone. So that's the story. Now, you talk about Facebook being our roots. Our entire business was on Facebook. It's where we advertised. It's where our community was. We didn't have Discord. We live streamed from Facebook. And now, obviously, it's come full circle where there's absolutely no reason for us whatsoever to be using that platform. We didn't need to be using it anymore, but it was just kind of, I don't know, it was kind of like a nostalgia thing for us. But it's done.
So any sort of, where do you go from here? Is that even a concern? Kind of like, you know, are you saying like, where we don't even need it? Or it was like you said, it was more nostalgia than anything, or do you need to pivot in any kind of way?
Oh, huge pivots. Yeah. Like, we're not advertising at all. We advertised through YouTube for a good couple of years. The Meta algorithm or system is much more effective at finding guys like you, Shane, than the YouTube one was. So we actually pulled YouTube. We could advertise on YouTube tomorrow. We could start that system back up, and maybe there is a time and a place where we do, you know, give that a shot again to an extent. But Meta was far superior. You know, we've touched base on this. Like, we switched our pricing to annual. I'll say it again. If anyone is listening to this and they're uncomfortable with the pricing changes, just reach out. We've gotten 3 or 4 people in the last 2 weeks where they didn't pay annually. So we can always work with you and have a discussion with you. But we've switched to annual payments because we want the right customers. A lot of the marketing and messaging that's out there, it is generally going to lead to someone that, you know, is maybe a quick sale that isn't a long-term person. So we have an established community. We have a niche community. It definitely isn't what it was. We're not going to see a ton of new members pour in ever again, because that's not the system that we're running anymore. We're good. As far as like pivots go, just mostly organic content, like things like this. We don't have a huge following on this podcast, but if you watch this and you don't think we're legitimate, then I think you're nuts, right? You know, I'd ask you why the hell you're listening anymore.
You
know,
now.
So yeah. So definitely some pivots, a lot more organic stuff, and just keep plugging away. And the other thing too is like brand awareness, market awareness. Like at Bet Bash last year, I'm not Spanky where everyone knows who he is, but definitely some people knew who I was and were aware of us that I had never met or had never been in the community. And there's also people that had been in the community and currently were in the community. Some that said it was amazing and can't wait to get back. None that came and wanted to punch me in the face that I knew of. and definitely some happy members that are still with us today. And then obviously new members that joined that are still with us today. So, we're a little bit more established now. People know who we are. They know what we do. And they either see the value in it long-term or they don't.
Yeah. Well, you know, anybody who investigates it really thoroughly, I'm sure will see the value long-term. And chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you know, chances are you've at least seen it and thought about exploring it if you haven't joined our community and come and bet with us live yet. And we definitely encourage you to try it. If you've made it this far into the show, listening on a regular basis, and even just this episode alone, if you've made it this far, it's probably worth it. All right, Pace, anything else on this topic? Or is that it? Are we done for this week?
On this topic, no, but I do want to bring up, since it is March, right?
Yes.
March Madness is upon us. We are in the middle of the first week of conference tournaments. Next week will be the second week of conference tournaments. And then, of course, we'll have Selection Sunday, and we will have the tournament March Madness. We will have a March Madness bracket coming out. That's obviously a really exciting time. That and our Survivor Pool are usually the two biggest contests that we run. But we are running that Pinnacle contest. So we are now, 25 days or so before we do our giveaway of that $1,000 USD Pinnacle top up into your account. All you have to do to enter is make sure you have an account. To get an account, you go to pinnacle.com/inplayLIVE. You sign up. That's number one. Number two, you have to join our free Discord community. And number three, just send me a screenshot of a wager that you've placed at Pinnacle of your entire account that is at least $10. And then you will be entered for that $1,000 prize that I think Shane will give away on the podcast.
Here on the podcast, let's give it away here on the podcast. And it's only like a month away, less than a month away, because it'll be at the end of March, right? Or beginning of April. April, whatever the episode is after April 1st. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that'll be fun. Looking forward to giving away some money to somebody out there. One of you out there in the audience, going to get $1,000 USD added to your Pinnacle bankroll. That's pretty fucking sweet. I gotta say. And yes, this is March. I love March. I can't wait to talk about some more hoops over the next couple of weeks, and we'll really dive into college basketball in a more meaningful way. All right. Well, Pace. With that, a lot of fun. Till next week. Keep
with Ryan Hammer.
With Ryan Hammer. Oh, can't wait. That's going to be awesome. Guys, stay tuned for that. This guy was incredible last time we had him, and I can't wait to talk to him again. All right. See ya.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join in Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.